Shamata meditation. Shamata meditation was one of the two main forms of meditation originally identified by Shakyamuni Buddha some 2,500 years ago. The other form was Vipassana, also called insight meditation. And although the two are sometimes taught together, it's most common to first learn Shamata and then learn Vipassana, because Shamata really is the fundamental basis for almost all other forms of meditation. And an analogy that I often like to use is that of trying to thread a needle with shaky hands. It's very difficult. And Shamata meditation removes the shakiness from the hands so that the more advanced forms of meditation like Vipassana can actually be learned. Without Shamata, it's very, very difficult to do insight meditation. So Shamata is the place to start, and it's the basis on which further meditation practices are based. There are not only hundreds of types of meditation, there are scores of approaches to teaching even what I'm presenting here, which is just basic traditional Shamata meditation. I make no claims to be definitive, and I encourage you to read other accounts. Much of what I'm presenting here has to do with misunderstandings that I had while learning. Suggestions that would have saved me actually years of time. So I wish I could have read some of these suggestions myself when I was coming up. Now let's talk about the word meditation. I learned to read enough Tibetan script to know that there are dozens of words for what we call meditation. And here in the United States, we have just that one word, meditation, to cover hundreds of techniques that claim to be meditation. I mean, everything from lava lamps and lighting incense to all kinds of guided meditation or relaxation therapies and so on. How does one sort through all of these for something authentic, something that's been around for more than 50 years? Don't get me wrong, there's nothing bad about relaxing, or just cooling out. And you can call it meditation if you wish. However, I find it helpful to distinguish traditional, the tried and true meditation techniques that have been around for thousands of years from those that may perhaps just be a current fad. So what we're talking about is authentic transmission. As mentioned, the particular meditation technique presented here has been around for at least 2,500 years and was taught by the Buddha himself. My particular lineage of that originated in India. It came into Tibet from a Tibetan called Marpa, the translator, and others, and was taught to the great yogi Milarepa, maybe perhaps Tibetan's greatest saint. And it was he who transmitted it to Gampopa, who then transmitted it to the first Karmapa, whose name was Dusum Khenpa. And on it went down the line of 17 Karmapas to the present day, and the current 17th Karmapa. I learned it personally from the Venerable Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche in 1974, and have studied it extensively over the years. My wife Margaret and I have run the Heart Center KTC here in Big Rapids, Michigan, and have taught meditation since the mid-1980s. And here's my point. Shamata is an authentic form of meditation that's been passed down from mouth to ear for centuries, literally thousands of years. I have been given permission to teach it by the Venerable Khenpo Karta Rinpoche, with whom I've worked for 30 years. He's 90 years old now. And this form of meditation is the same that is taught by both Zen and Tibetan Buddhists, not to mention many Hindu groups as well as in countries like Japan, Korea, and all over Nepal, all over Asia. In Sanskrit, it's called Shamata, which simply means something like abiding in the calm, calm abiding. And it involves simply learning to allow the mind to come to rest naturally. And, as mentioned, this form of meditation is the basis for further, more advanced forms of meditation. I should say something about the Gyawa Karmapa. Now, everyone knows of the Dalai Lama. I mean, he's the spiritual head of one of the four main schools of Tibetan Buddhism, the Gelugpa lineage. The current Dalai Lama is the 14th rebirth of this same teacher. I belong to a different lineage of Tibetan Buddhism known as the Kagyu. The head of this lineage is the Gyawa Karmapa, and he is the 17th rebirth for that teacher. In other words, the line of Karmapas predate the line of Dalai Lamas by 3 generations, and the Karmapas are the oldest, the first ever reborn Tibetan masters. I say this point only to make clear the authenticity and history of this particular lineage. And I was fortunate enough to meet both the 16th Karmapa in 1974, and then I traveled to Tibet with my family to meet the current 17th Karmapa in 1997. I have also been with the 17th Karmapa and served as a photographer during his first 2 visits to America in 2008 and 2011. And while Shamata meditation is taught by all 4 of the Tibetan lineages, this particular method of meditation comes from the line of the Karmapas, and before them the line of the Indian Mahasiddhas before that, and originally, of course, from the Buddha himself. Now, I want to talk about what's called meditation practice, or many people just call it Dharma practice. If you ask most Buddhist practitioners what they do as regards meditation, they will simply say that they're doing their practice. Now, the accent should be on the word practice here, because in the beginning, what we are doing is practicing meditation, not actually meditating. And this is something that few beginners understand. I certainly didn't understand it for decades. Real, authentic, true meditation only comes later. As mentioned, it took me years to understand this. I don't know what I was thinking, but I guess I thought that I was meditating all that time, when in fact I had never really learned how to actually meditate. So what I was doing was practicing meditation, but hadn't yet understood that what I was doing was just practice. Basic meditating requires that we develop some mental muscle memory. You know, the habit of the technique itself, something that up to now we've never had. We didn't know it. And this takes time, and to use the word again, it takes practice. So this often is not understood by those setting out to meditate. We don't just instantly sit down and meditate and, ooh, that feels good. The technique of meditation that we are learning here is much like the scaffolding used to build a house. When the house is done, we take down the scaffolding. In this analogy, meditation is the house or the goal, and the techniques, the various techniques of meditation, learning mindfulness as a habit, is the scaffolding. And let me give you another analogy. If we want to learn to play a musical instrument such as a guitar, we have to learn how to tune the guitar, to put strings on it, plus all kinds of ways to play chords. And finally, musical scales. All of this is not the same as just playing music. We must practice scales and tuning, etc., before we can actually play music. So that's what I mean by practice. When we have practiced enough, then we can play music. Meditation is like this, but with one big difference. When you learn to play the guitar, you know beforehand what the end result, music, sounds like. You can go and listen to music. You can put on a CD. Listen to your favorite kind of music and imagine someday that you can play like that. But with meditation, this simply is not true. Meditation requires the same kind of practice as learning an instrument. You know, building muscle memory, mental memory, as well as just as if you were to learn the guitar. But with meditation, and this is the point, we have no idea and no experience of what the end result of what we're working toward is like. We can't simply play the music of awareness whenever we want it. There's no CD or DVD we can put on, so, oh, that's what awareness or that's what enlightenment is. In fact, we may have little to no experience with enlightenment, with awareness, and so forth personally. Probably we don't. We are only going on what we've read and what we've heard. And think on this, because this is a huge difference. In fact, in my experience, the expectations and assumptions that we make about what the results of meditating is supposed to be like often becomes our biggest obstacle to actually meditating. We think we know what we're supposed to be experiencing, what meditation is supposed to be like, when by definition, the truth is we don't. We continue to compare our actual experience in practicing meditation to this idea that we built up about it, and we usually come up short. So that disappointment, that coming up short, actually affects, it impinges on our practice. So in my opinion, I feel it's important for beginning meditators to admit to themselves that they have no idea what enlightenment, what realization, or even much greater awareness is like, because they don't. Now, that may be why we're learning to meditate, but unlike music, we can't just put on a record and hear the music of awareness. We have to have trust. Just as in the movie, if you've ever seen it with Kevin Costner, called Field of Dreams, they have the line, if we build this baseball field, then they will come, that these baseball players from the past will appear magically. So it's the same with awareness. If we practice, awareness will come. And it will, but not if our expectations overpower it and cause us to continually throw in the towel. So, let me sum it up. Meditation practice is just that. Practice. The practice is not the goal of the practice, which is, of course, meditation and the awareness that it brings. Our meditation practice is like the training wheels on a kid's bike. Once we learn to actually meditate, we take the training wheels off, we take the scaffolding down, and we just meditate. But until that time, keep in mind that practicing takes effort, and effort is not part of natural meditation, but only a way to build the muscle memory, mental habits we need in order to meditate. So please don't confuse the efforts to meditate with meditation itself. If we're beginning, or even pretty advanced, we're still practicing meditation. It sounds like this.